From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Naira Ahmed. Today marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz Nazi death camp. Canadian Press reporter David Baxter is in Poland, where he spoke with two Canadian Holocaust survivors who returned to Poland for the event and met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, 89-year-old Miriam Ziegler and 96-year-old Howard Chandler.
Miriam lost her entire family in the camp, while Howard was able to reunite with his brother, and I believe his sister also made it out of the concentration camps at liberation. Both of them shared a worry that this could potentially happen again, pointing to events since rising anti-Semitism.
Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was among politicians and community leaders in Ottawa to commemorate the anniversary.
We must stand with the Jewish people and the state of Israel in their effort to preserve their existence and to live a peaceful, democratic life.
Today, the federal government announced just under $3.4 million in new funding for initiatives to combat anti-Semitism and provide education about the Holocaust. Liberal leadership candidate Chrystia Freeland says Ottawa needs to release a retaliation plan right away to deal with U.S. President Donald Trump's 25% tariff threat.
Freeland says the best response to Trump's trade threats is to scare the Americans off of the idea of tariffs. She's calling for a $200 billion retaliation plan, much larger than what Canada would likely retaliate with. Rival candidate Mark Carney said in an interview with French-language media over the weekend that cutting off Quebec's hydro exports to the U.S. should remain on the table. The comments come ahead of the deadline for candidates to sign up Liberal Party members who can vote for them in March. Kyle Duggan, The Canadian Press, Ottawa.
Meantime, Public Safety Minister David McGuinty says Canada is pushing on multiple fronts to address U.S. concerns about the border.
The first thing to keep in mind is it's a very strong border. It's one that's evolved over 150 years of relationship. It remains the longest undefended border in the world, and we intend to try to keep it that way. I think our American colleagues share the same view.
His comments come as Manitoba joined Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta in announcing plans to provide policing services to supplement resources at the border to help strengthen border security. Also, the Canada Border Services Agency says hikers on a trail that crosses into British Columbia from Washington State will no longer be allowed to proceed without first entering Canada through a designated entry point. The trail spans over 4,000 kilometers from Mexico to Canada. And the Royal Canadian Navy has identified the sailor who died on Friday in Halifax as Petty Officer 2nd Class Gregory Applin. The 38-year-old weapons engineering technician died after a small boat capsized in the north end of Halifax Harbor. The second sailor on board the ship survived, and an investigation by the military will determine what happened. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, there are 5 games in the NHL tonight, including one in Edmonton, where Captain Connor McDavid returns from his 3-game suspension to lead the Oilers against the visiting Seattle Kraken. Elsewhere, the Vancouver Canucks visit the St. Louis Blues. The Ottawa Senators will play 2 preseason games in Quebec City before the next NHL season, including one against the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs were bitter rivals of the Nordiques before the team moved from Quebec's capital in 1995 and became the Colorado Avalanche. The Ottawa Charge host the New York Sirens in tonight's lone PWHL game, and there are 12 games in the NBA tonight, including one in Toronto, where the Raptors will be looking to extend their winning streak to 4 games when they host the New Orleans Pelicans. Raptors star Scotty Barnes was named the NBA's Eastern Conference Player of the Week earlier today, and Jimmy Butler was suspended by the Miami Heat for a 3rd time after something apparently went wrong during the shoot-around. From the Canadian Press, I'm Naira Ahmed.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.